Okay, I just hit stream, and you're in small, not the ideal format here at all, but at least you're there.
What is the YouTube channel called, Paul?
It's just Starweaver Group.
Starweaver Group?
Yeah, so if you just Google Starweaver Group.
See, there we go.
And if this works, I'm just going to go for it just as is, and we're going to deal with that.
All right.
I'd rather
And which one is it that we're looking at?
It should say live. There should be like a live section there, like a tab. I think the tab.
There's a nailing the Azure AZ500 exam. That one.
Nope, there should be one under live. There are two tabs, I think. If you look right across the top, there should be two tabs. One would say like videos, and the other says live.
I see playlists, videos, channels, discussion.
Let me see if I can find it as we're talking.
I see.
Switch accounts. Okay. Starting to see our. I'm going to take this if I can get the URL. Yeah, why is that one up there? Again, he didn't bring the right one up, but there should be a live.
Yeah, I don't see React up there.
Let me see if I can get him. I'm going to call him on this other phone, of course, at the same time.
Oh, I can see it, Paul. It's just under the nailing the AZ500 exam.
Yeah, he didn't change it. Can you see it there? Can you see it streaming live?
Yeah.
So you can see yourself
it's
also?
Under AZ.
Can you change the graphic on the YouTube channel? Because the YouTube channel has the nailing the AZ500. You didn't change the one to the React course, which is what we need. Yeah. Okay, hang on. And then you got to help me walk through. I got to get in the shade here. Hang on a second. I'll be right back. Right back, Shaun.
Okay.
Did you change the graphic? And then I got to figure out how to capture Shaun because I see him there. Hang on, Shaun. I'm putting my headset.
Oh, I'm not sure. Is Aman on this call?
Hang on. I have window capture.
Okay.
I'm there, window capture. Yeah, I see him. Okay, it says Skype. Yeah. Which one? Skype 42 or Skype no? The Skype one here is fine. Skype 42. I don't know. Oh, there he is. But now he's in. Okay, hold on. I think that might have done it. Hang on, 1 second. I think, yeah, now I can move him over. Oh, cool. I got to get rid of him in the front here. Oh, cool, Shaun. Now do you see yourself? I got to move you to the back somehow.
Let me try it again. I see me. Yeah. Yep.
Now how do I move him to the back? Oh, how do I got like Alt. I got to hit the Alt key. You said. Hit the Alt key and then change him. How do I do this? Oh.
I do see myself, Paul.
I want to move him into that box. Oh, shoot. Sorry. What do I do now? I click on Shaun. I move him over. I want to make him a little bit bigger, okay? Right click. Okay. And what do I do? Yeah? Under what? Order. I'm sorry. I don't see the order. I know it's here. Yeah, I got it. Okay. No. Move down. Okay, move. I'm using a different overlay image. I don't think so. I don't care about that. Let's just get Shaun going first, then we can deal with that, okay? So order, move him down. Move him to bottom. No, it didn't work. No, it didn't move.
We might just have to go with that, Paul.
Yeah, 1 second. What do you mean? Do it at the top? Okay, I did. Now what I do? With Alt versus Control. What do I hit? Alt? How do I remember you let me change his size? Yes. Okay, here and grab. Okay, good. There we go. Okay.
There we go. Look at that.
It's starting to come together.
We have the technology.
Yeah, but I want to make him bigger now. How do I do that? Alt again? No, but that's okay. That's a little bit. That's okay. That's fine. But I want to move him to the back now, right? The order I put him to the back. Oh, there you go. That's better. Okay, we're getting there, Sean. Sorry about this.
Perfect.
Better
No
than
problem.
better than nothing. But did you send me over his image now? Is the background? You sent the background image. Hang on. How do I see the background image now? Oh my God! I didn't mean to do that. Now what do I do? Yeah, I got the wrong background. Image, and then add an image. Image there. No, I already have it. I have it. I just got to find it. I already put it there. I just got to find out where the heck this was. Text multimedia. No, this is interesting. Okay, here we go. Under sales marketing. Where's the marketing folder? Yeah, unfortunately I don't see that, and it's already causing me a problem because I'm already now got the wrong image. So let me find the right folder. Okay, I had this folder previously. Where's the? Okay, there, and we have Meet the Gurus, and we have Shaun. Come on, got too many folders here. Okay, send it to me again. I'll just go for it. I don't know. This is. Okay, that's what I needed. I just need to locate it. Okay, there it is. Okay. Okay, that one's correct now. That's okay. Got Shaun. Now I've got to figure out how do we. That's good. Now how do we? Now that we've aligned that,
There we go.
I got to figure out how do I get Shaun back into the image here. Is this the image capture? This is window capture again. Okay, and properties. Why is my property not capturing Shaun correctly? Why is that looking strange? Why can't I find Shaun here? Okay, I'm going to change a new one. I'm going to do it again. Window capture. Okay, and select Skype. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I see that Skype, but why is that Skype? Oh, I know why. Because I'm probably looking in Skype at a window within a window within a window. There you go. Okay, so get rid of this. It's amazing. See? Okay, so let me just see if I can find Shaun again. Oh my gosh. Okay, where's Shaun? Let me just find Skype. Man, I think I'm going to move back to the smoke signal machine. Much more effective. Okay, so how do I get... Oh, man. Shaun, could you hang up and call me back? Do you mind?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thanks.
How are you? I know, lady. figure out who anybody is. What are you doing? I'm good. Have you guys had a good summer?
I have no idea how to get you out of this picture now. How are you? You're in this picture over here, right? I want to get
Try on it.
this closed.
I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, I saw there were great deals, like things I wanted, but...
How do I get rid of this now? Oh my god. This is just the beginning of, how come I can't? Okay, hold on a second. I gotta kill this task.
So, longing for the old days, but it's not gonna go anywhere. I know, I don't even get it. Take care. I'm doing the same thing.
Well, I was trying to. I mean, it's got these crazy things going on. I'm trying to get rid of that. Okay, so now I see Skype, but I don't see Shaun calling me. Yeah, remember I said we can't do this. We cannot do this. We always have to have ourselves prepared way in advance, okay?
How's that, Paul?
Okay, let me just see if I can get you in the window capture now. Properties are properties, and I want to get Shaun. Pick something else, and I'm going to pick Shaun back. Skype. I don't know what Skype 42 means. I'm going to pick Skype. Is that the right one or Skype 42? Yeah, that's what it seems like. Hold on. And now it seems like I can get Shaun and make him bigger. And I want to send him to the back, right? Okay. Looks like I've gotten you there. Okay, Shaun. Looks like we're set. I mean, it's better than poking the eye, as they say.
Sounds good.
Are we streaming okay?
Yeah, I can hear you and everything.
Okay, and then tell Piyush not to contact me right now, okay? Just to tell him I'm on the stream, okay? And
Gotcha.
are we streaming okay? Aman? Yeah? We're streaming okay? Okay. Okay, thanks. I got it. Let me just make sure I hit recording.
Yes.
This is quite interesting. As they say in Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times.
Definitely interesting, for sure.
Definitely interesting times. Okay, so everyone, thank you very much for waiting, and I will just give me a second as trying to catch up with where we are or should be. Just give me a second. Okay, so Shaun, I think we're live. So
sounds good. Sounds good. Very excited to be here.
Shaun, thanks for taking the time. We are in different locations, but on the same team, as they say, and thanks for talking to us today about React, React.js, and the entire React world. And I guess the first thing to do would be just to introduce the title, Meet the Gurus. In this case, well, in many cases, and probably in most cases, I'm not the guru. Shaun's the guru in this case, and he will tell you all about React and the world of the React universe and the ecosystem. And I think the best thing to do is start out, Shaun, just talk to us a little about yourself, your background, how you grew up into the React community, and
sure.
That's a good way to kick off.
Yeah, so my history with React has been, it definitely wasn't a direct thing. Graduating from college, I graduated with a degree in computer science, as many programmers do, and I found that degree really didn't help me, really didn't prepare me very well for a career in software development, right? I mean, the technologies, the techniques, all that kind of stuff that are used in the software development world today, they don't really teach you that kind of stuff in college, right?
Right.
So, I found is that I graduated college without any knowledge of GitHub, really. None of the professors really even knew what that was because they had never used it themselves. Without any knowledge of how to actually do effective development. And so I was, I was able to get a pretty good job out of college doing development using a framework called Ember. Now, many of you may or may not have heard of Ember. It's sort of like the predecessor, I would call it, to React, right? This is back several years ago when people were still kind of trying to figure out, okay, how do we create a framework that allows people to to build websites in a much more effective way, right? Because before that, prior to that, it was all hand-coded sites, right? People would literally write all the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all that kind of stuff by hand. So obviously people, obviously that's not ideal, right? So people were kind of looking for different ways to do that. Mm-hmm. And so Ember was the one that I used, that I started off using. And for I think right now LinkedIn is the big player that actually uses Ember. I don't know of any other companies off the top of my head that actively use Ember. Mm-hmm. Personally, it's not my favorite framework anymore, but anyway, so that's how I got my that was my first foray into the world of using these front-end frameworks to build sites, right? Okay. So that's where I started off. I definitely, like most millennials, I've bounced around quite a bit, just trying out a little of this, a little of that. Mm-hmm. The way that I actually got into React was almost kind of through the back door, right? So there was a startup that I worked at back in Michigan, where I'm from originally, and I originally got hired there as the iPhone developer, right? So that was kind of the big thing back then. You knew how to develop for an iPhone. You were doing pretty well, because that was kind of the big money maker at the time, right? So I got hired originally as an iPhone developer, and so I was using Swift and all that kind of stuff. And the company turned out they really wanted to focus their efforts on the website, right? Mm-hmm. The front end website. And so they had heard that I had done some stuff with Ember, all that kind of stuff. So they said, okay, hey, do you want to maybe come work on React? And as it turns out, was the best decision I've ever made in my career so far, because that was right kind of when React was getting really big, right? So I was kind of on the road. I was able to ride that wave, and learn, be one of the first ones really to learn and have the experience of building a enterprise-sized React app.
Well, timing is everything, right?
Oh, for sure.
Better to have good timing than be smart. In my case,
well, it's better to do both. I can't say I'm really that smart.
No, yeah. You obviously are. And
smart.
So what was the attraction? What is? Let's step back for a second. What is the React framework? And tell us a little about it and what it means overall.
Sure. So React is, React is just it's a library that allows us to create websites much faster than we used to, right? That's kind of the big appeal of it, right? Because again, before, every company that had a website basically had their own, had to develop their own framework behind the scenes, right? And so there was all this work being done over and over and over again in every different company that was developing a website. Right. They had to figure out how to maximize performance, mm-hmm. right? They had to figure out how to make it so that their website updated correctly and loaded data correctly and all that kind of stuff. So there's all these pretty modular different tasks that every company had to figure out for themselves. So the advantage of React is that the React team, it's an open source project. The React library is kind of a collection of all those, everything that we've figured out so far about building an effective front-end websites. That basically a company now, right? If you and I wanted to start a company right now, for example, and build a website, we'd be able to do that very quickly because all of those difficult decisions have been made for us, right? So all we have to do is kind of take the library, mm-hmm. right? Take React. set up our site using the different pieces of the API that they provided for us, and that allows us to, that would allow us to build a site in probably a tenth of the time.
And is it
At the end of the day, the site would be more performant. That site would be easier to maintain. That site would be, it would work better. It would have less bugs. So yeah, it's just a win-win for everybody.
And it'll be understood by a broad community of people, right? I mean, so now it'll be intuitive to a large number of people who are either React or JavaScript developers, right?
Right.
So it's a JavaScript library. Is that correct?
It is. Yep. And it's it's obviously only one option that's available. Is you have Angular, you have Vue, you have Svelte, you have a lot of other options, but the most popular one right now, depending on what metrics you look at, of course, is React.
And if you're a JavaScript developer, how long is it going to take you to understand the React framework? Is it something you can immerse yourself in within a matter of weeks and months, or is it more like years?
It does not take years, right? If it did take years, we'd all be out of luck, because React as a library has only been around for I want to say like 8 years, right? So the most, and we'll get to that later, but that's one of the advantages if you're looking for a React job, is that the most experienced React developer only has like 8 years of experience, and that's someone who just so happened to be around at the time, when React was created, right? So if it's, so most people don't have more than, say, 4 or 5 years of experience in React, right? Because you can't, right? So anyway, and I have actually seen job postings that are like, 10 plus years of experience in React. It's like, how does that work?
Well, it works the way that HR people sometimes don't know the domain, and so they say we need a lot of experience.
And we'll get to that too later. That's kind of one of the notes that I have to mention about just the interview process in general. But But yeah, so that's definitely one advantage if you are interested in looking for a React job. That's definitely one advantage that you have over, say, if you're looking for a C++ job. There are people who have 20 plus years of experience in C++. It's been around for a very, very long time.
Right.
So
let's talk a little about so it's more likely than not that someone's going to be walking into an environment that is React environment already, right? So it's unlikely that someone who's going to get the first job is going to be thrown into an environment that says, we've heard about React, we think it's a cool framework, go for it. So you're going to be moving into a team that's already applying this. So how, where, what, when, and why? I guess we got to the why, very popular, very clearly open source, lots of modular components in the library already. So let's say the when. You talked about front end. Is it exclusively front end, or does it allow us to talk to the middle and to the back end of a platform?
Yeah, so React is strictly a front end library that deals with the views that the end user is going to see, right? So it's not nearly as opinionated as some other frameworks like Angular, for example, where Angular has, here's the right way to load data. Here's the right way to do dependency injection. Here's the right way to do routing. React is much more flexible with those kind of things, and that's one of the things that I like about React, but that can also get some people into trouble with React, is that there's a lot of different options available to you, right? So React itself, literally, what it's meant to do is take data from somewhere, doesn't matter where, right? Because that's one of the other, that's an additional option that React gives you, to take some sort of data and turn that into DOM elements, right? Very, very efficiently, right? And then keep the DOM updated as that data updates. So, it's very, React itself is very specific, but there's a lot of, it's called the React ecosystem, right? There's a lot of different technologies that you can sort of add on to React to get different technology, right? So if you want to do stuff like state management, which is something that I'll mention, a little later on.
Sure.
There's Redux, right? Which is an extremely popular add-on. That's one of the things that definitely brownie points for you. there's a lot of other things too. You have GraphQL, which is starting to get really popular as a tool to use with React. And then as far as the backend and all that kind of stuff, again, you can choose, right? You can have a Node.js backend, you can have a monolithic backend, you can have a serverless backend. It doesn't really matter in the context of React. Right? React doesn't have any opinion on that.
Doesn't have any.
It's strictly a front end thing.
So if you're walking into an environment that is, let's just use maybe some examples of domains. Let's say a financial services website where there's a lot of data, and let's assume we're talking about behind the firewall. You're talking about lots of data, maybe charts and graphs being sent to people. Maybe it's even a trading platform. Is that a React-friendly world to be in? Is that where you say, look, this has to be React because it's so rich in the front end?
So one thing that you'll find a lot with with bank websites and those kind of like high security environments is that they use Java is the big one that they use. And JavaScript itself doesn't have the best track record of stuff like security, for example. It's especially with all the stuff that's been going on lately with the group called MageCart. I don't know if you've heard anything about them, but basically what they've been able to do, since JavaScript is pretty library intensive, right? Most projects use some sort of third-party library. What this group has been able to do is hack those libraries, and then through that hack every site that uses the library. So I mean, obviously that's a problem with JavaScript itself, or not so much a problem with JavaScript itself, but a problem with kind of the way it's used, right? Anyway, we don't have to get into that too much, but you could easily, build a perfectly secure site, bank site, front end anyway, with React, right? Because at the end of the day, you're taking data that gets sent from the server, right, and you're displaying that to the user. So it would be perfectly possible to build the front end for a bank website, any kind of.
But just, I think it sounds like what you're saying is that
site in.
It just sounds like you might be saying there might be more security-related issues. Not that it's not overall something that would prevent you, but it just might be more security-related issues if you were using React for that purpose.
I mean, at that point, you can make sure that all those things are covered. At that point you have to know enough about security to not do stupid things like fall victim SQL injection, those kind of attacks, right? So you just have to be very careful about. Basically, you just have to have a good knowledge of security concepts and how those apply in React. So that's definitely not a make it or break it kind of thing.
Okay. So what's the typical question that you're going to be asked in an interview? Like the question I just asked you, and you'd have to be able to address it, or is it more of a fundamental to the specific components of the library? Yeah.
Well, so I guess that depends on the interview, right? If you're interviewing at a bank that's thinking of using React for their front end, then that would definitely be something that they'll ask you, and they might not even know the answer, right? That's kind of the interesting thing a lot of the time is that there's so many companies that are still in the process of changing over their systems from whatever they had, whether it's Java server pages or something like that, to React. There's so many companies that want to do that a lot of the time they don't even have a React person on staff. So you're a lot of the time might be talking to you as a first potential researcher into that kind of thing.
So what do you propose then? I mean, what are you, the person listening to that, knowing, for example, and this is presuming you have to sort of obviously have done the research about your client, your potential job as to where are they in their own life cycle. But if they're very early on, what are some of the questions? I often think asking a question of your interviewer, not being cheeky about it, but asking a question to them is a better way of helping you guide your answer. Right? So you don't just necessarily want to answer the question so broadly when you don't even know it's almost like when you build software, right? In general, you have to understand what the problem is. What problem are you trying to solve for?
Right. Well, and especially in a corporate environment, you can tell a lot of the time that just by the questions they ask, you can tell what they're trying to do, right?
Right.
You can tell that they just have a very specific use case. And I mean, in that case, the best question to ask, from my standpoint, is, well, what is it you're trying to build? You know, like if they're asking these hypothetical questions, like, so let's say that you had a banking system and you wanted to, connect it to this other thing, and you wanted to build the front end in React, then what would you, if they're asking something like that, they got something in mind. Just ask them, okay, well, let's, if you're interested in building something like that, it's definitely possible. Just, let's talk about it in a little more solid detail.
Right. And often there's no right and wrong answers in these things, right? You're obviously trying to build systems, and we just described one where it might be useful, and it might also bring open security holes, like you talked about SQL injections and things of that sort. So obviously, finding out more clarity, this is almost like the specification process, right?
Right.
Getting more clarity as to what the client wants.
Right. Oh, for sure.
And what their end goal is.
Yeah, and that brings me to one of the things that I wanted to talk about. And if you don't mind, Paul,
go ahead, please.
One of the I had just a little. I don't know how long this will take, but what I kind of want to do here is just kind of go through the process of React and getting a React job, just kind of step by step, right? So what you just said reminded me, and these are just a few opening thoughts here of that process, is that in looking for a React job, or in looking for any job really, it's all sales, right? At the bottom of it all, it's you're selling yourself to the company, right?
Correct.
So and everything that you're going to do from the first resume you send in to when you finally seal the deal and accept the job and start working is going to be trying to sell that company on your services, right? It's no different than if I were trying to sell you shoes or something like that, right?
Exactly.
I mean, these people are people, right? Your interviewers are going to be people. The people looking at your resume are going to be people, unless they're an automatic filtering program, which we'll talk about as well. But and that being said, it is you have to convince them. The whole goal of the interview process to convince them that you're the right person for the team. Whether you do that by being extremely easy to work with, fun to work with. People always love having someone like that around. Or whether I mean, you could name any number of benefits with jobs like this that you would be able to provide the company with. So anyway, I mean, that's just something to keep in mind as we go through these points that I'm gonna bring up here. It's all, I mean, everything that you do should be done with the purpose of trying to convince the company of your value. Right? So, and obviously you don't necessarily want to do that, just factually. You don't want to walk in with a bunch of figures and say, I can make you this much money and here's how. Although, I mean, you could potentially do that, but you want to make them feel good about you, whatever that means, right?
Right.
So that's the first thing to keep in mind. The second thing is that what I've learned after I mentioned that I've been through quite a few very enjoyable jobs, and what I've learned from all of those is that when you're starting your job search, right, and if you know for a fact that you want to be a React developer, for example, then this is no different. What you're going to want to do before you start looking, right, before you before you even put your resume together, ideally, scenario. Right, literally just sit down, close your eyes, and picture what is my dream job look like, right? And if you don't want to call it a dream job, if you want to call it something else, call it whatever you want. But what is my life? My life is 3 months. And the second step of that, obviously, is going to be to it's so easy, especially it's so easy to come up with something like that. Get solid on what it is you want, and then 2 weeks down the road, you all that work was get in the first place, right? So anyway, those are the two things, right? So you want to come up with your ideal scenario, you want to write it down, and finally, the last piece is that you don't want to compromise on that throughout the whole job search process, right? Because it's so easy to, and I meet people like this all the time. It's so easy to come up with, I want a React job that pays this amount of money, and I want it to be at this kind of company, right? They're rock solid on what they want, but then the first job that comes along that's an Angular job paying less than they wanted, and they have to, relocate, they're like, oh yeah, I'll accept it, right? So it's really, you don't want to do that, right? There's that, the React field it's really a job searcher's market, right? So if you're looking for a React job, assuming you're reasonably good at what you do, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about making sure that that's true in a few minutes as well. But assuming you're reasonably good, assuming you're a reasonably talented or skilled developer, you have the upper hand in negotiation.
That's right.
Because these companies, that's kind of what I mentioned before about the ultimate advantage of React is that companies now, it's so much more productive to have a single React developer than, companies used to have 5-6 front-end developers for every one front-end developer they have now, right? Because it involved, coming up with a website, a performant website, involved a lot of extra overhead for building the site.
Right.
Companies now have a lot more resources and a lot more reason to find it. So it's that's something to keep in mind too. And obviously that doesn't mean you can just walk in with your list of demands and say, I want this much and I want to start tomorrow. It doesn't mean you can do that, but it does mean that you shouldn't compromise on your ideal job, right? You don't have to accept the first job that comes along. Right? You don't have to accept the second one. You don't have to accept the 10th, right? You will, install them if you want. It's, you're only a Google search away from finding that company.
Right.
These are good candidates for my ideal job. So anyway, those are things. Yeah, those are definitely things to keep.
Yeah, I lost you there a few times. Just I hope everyone else heard it. I seem to have lost the stream, but so I think you came through though. Part of his career planning, right? Obviously, where do you want to be?
Of course.
And I think, humility. I don't think you're saying don't be humble, but that's. But
you want to be 100% humble because people won't.
Right.
The fact is, people won't hire a jerk, right? They don't want to, no matter how good you are.
Right.
So there's
but it's
so
clear
many.
You want to be in a progression that you're not taking. Someone's not taking you off to the left when you want to be straight ahead.
You want to be rock solid on what it is, not to get too mushy gushy here, but you want to be rock solid on what it is you want out of life, right?
So let me
ask,
go ahead, please.
If that involves, you want to spend 3 years at an e-commerce company, something like that, right? You can get even more specific if you want to say, I want to work for, I want to get a job at a Silicon Valley startup that specializes in software as a service, right? You can do that too. But the point is to be rock solid on what you want and not, and be disciplined about not, chasing after some opportunity just because it's an opportunity.
Right. So let me ask you, let's start with that point. So what are some of the big red flags that you think people should keep their eyes out for? Like in many environments, you can figure out that this is not going to work out, and just let's leave out of the personalities and all of the financial dynamics and everything else. Let's just talk about from a technical point of view. What would tell you that this is going to be a mess? It's going to be building spaghetti that will never get you anywhere, will never come up with a functional product, etc.
So So before I answer that question, I want to just say that there's, it's going to be a different strokes for different folks kind of thing, right? For some people, the idea of going into to a kind of a messy code base and being the one to kind of put some order, figure out the system, improve the code base. Some people love that, right? I mean, personally, I'm a much bigger fan of writing things from scratch, right? Like I love to be there at the ground zero, building the app from scratch. That's what I love to do. And so, if a company comes along and says, well, what we want to do is our React app is kind of a mess, and we really need someone to just clean it up, then I'll know that that's not really my kind of thing. But as far as as far as red flags in general, and I had this in my notes for a little later on, but I'll pull it up to here because it's relevant to what we're talking about now. As far as red flags in general, one of the biggest red flags for that tells me that a company is going to be a little rocky. One of these sort of odors that alerts me that a company is going to be a little not quite what it's cracked up to be is that I'm contacted by a recruiter, right? Now, first of all, before you get all up in arms, or anyone gets all up in arms about that, I'm absolutely okay with recruiters. I've worked with some recruiters in the past that have done a fantastic job and have really helped me find, jobs that I otherwise have found just because of their relationship with that company. So I have nothing against recruiters at all. But so the thing with recruiter jobs, right? I'm sure a lot of us, a lot of you get messages from recruiters pretty regularly on LinkedIn. There are generally two situations that a company hires a recruiter because of how recruiters work, right? Recruiters are hired by the company to find employees to fill job postings, right? So, if a company can't find a React developer to fill their React developer role, they'll hire a developer, and they'll hire a recruiter rather, and that recruiter will find someone to fill the job. When they fill the job, the recruiter gets a big chunk of money from the company, and it's a non-trivial amount of money a lot of the time, right? It can be anywhere from 10 to 20 to 30,000 depending on the role.
Correct.
So you gotta that's the thing you gotta ask yourself when you get contacted by a recruiter, is okay, so why is the company willing to pay that much money to fill this role? Right? So I mean that's one thing to ask. And in my experience, there's generally two situations where a company is willing to do that, right? The first situation, as you might imagine, is that the company is, no one wants the role, right? So they gotta find recruiters who will, kind of talk it up, do advertising for them, find someone to fill. And in situations like that, what you're usually going to find is that the company is hiring you to complete some kind of project that's like behind schedule and over budget, right? Right. I mean, that's just kind of the general, in my experience anyway. Right? That's the point where companies usually turn to recruiters. Not ideal, right? For most people who are getting their first React job, that's not going to be what you want. Right. I can't think of a worse situation than being hired at a company, suddenly having like, oh, okay, so here's all the stuff you're going to do. When can you finish?
Right. Right.
Yeah. The second situation, however, which is very nice, that companies turn to recruiters, is when the company is, let's say it's a startup, or doesn't have to be a startup, but that's the most usual situation for it. The company is growing so fast that they can't fill the roles fast enough, right? So I worked at a company like this called StockX back in Detroit. Maybe some of you have heard of them. And they were just growing so fast. They were outgrowing office after office after office, and they just could not find developers fast enough, right? So they paid recruiters just because it was worth that payment to the recruiter to find a developer now and be able to make money faster than, you know, waiting till the right person sends in their resume, right? And you know, if you're into the fast-paced kind of, you know, move fast and break things kind of mentality that kind of job entails, as I am, I tend to enjoy those things. Then, you know, that can be a great way to do it, right? And the way that you'll know that, obviously, is by the fact that the company is growing, right? They'll, you know, when the recruiter that contacts you will probably say something to the effect of, you know, we've been growing, you know, this company has been 6,000 employees, right? Whatever they say, it's the key is that there's growth there, not that they have a big project that they're trying to get done. And the recruiters will say something to that effect if that's the case, right? They'll say like, yeah, the company's got a project that they're trying to find a React developer. Like, that's not a red flag, right? Like, keep talking with them, see what it's actually about. But, you know, definitely be aware that that's a possibility at that point.
There might be another. Is there another possibility? Well, lots of possibilities, but one thought I had was, as you're talking, is that it's possible that they just don't have a very big React infrastructure, and they don't know what they don't know. So therefore, they don't have a lot of connections in the React world. Maybe they haven't gone to too many conferences. Maybe they haven't networked broadly, and so there's just, you know, they're putting their toe in, and maybe you're one of the earlier React developers.
Yeah, that's possible too. Although, in those situations, they probably aren't, unless they're for some reason really eager to get React into their code base for some reason. Then at that point, they'll probably just post jobs online or do career fairs or one of those things instead of go straight to a recruiter, because of, you know, that big extra charge that the company pays when a recruiter places somebody. Right? You know, I mean, recruiting is a very big business for a reason. Right? And it's for every person you place, you're getting $20,000. Yeah, that's nothing to sneeze at, for sure.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
So, yeah. So anyway, that's kind of my thought on that. But yeah, well, moving on to the whole kind of mindset that you should approach the React job hunting process with. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I usually give to people, and this is obviously in addition to all the other stuff I just said, which might sound like big pieces of advice as well, but there are very few things that will help you get a React job faster than having a portfolio of React projects that you can show.
Correct. Right.
So if you know, it's a world of difference in, you know, like the interviews that I do, for example, it's a world of difference in how in the sort of atmosphere in the interview environment, whether the person coming in for the interview has a portfolio of projects that they built on their own time, right? Like if they can walk in and say, hey, you know, look at this project that I did that does this, look at this other project that I did that does this, and they can talk about the tech stack that they use, they can talk about React and how they used it. That is a world of difference over like someone just walking in and saying, I know React, quiz me, right? I mean, and I hate doing, you know, as an interviewer, I really am not a big fan of having to come up with these technical questions and ask people to, you know, to do it, because it's uncomfortable, right? Like, especially if you ask a question and the person just gets it wrong or doesn't know it or kind of babbles on.
Right.
And it's obvious that they're not really very familiar with what you asked.
You're asking a question in an abstract. But you're asking a question in abstract as opposed to how does it actually get applied.
Exactly. And so
So are there places where someone can just go out and get some React internships where they can build things? I mean, essentially, look, if you're getting a job and you're really looking to get a premium salary and compensation, as you said, I think that my experience in general in hiring people, it's always better to talk about what they've done and what the demonstrative proof, and then you can ask them about why didn't you do it this way, why didn't you do it that way? Right. Then you have at least an explanation, right? So there are places that do.
Well, so one of the things I would say is, I mean, if you want to go out and get an internship, that's great, right? And I'm sure there's plenty of, if you just search like junior React jobs or something, you'll find it. My opinion on that though is that you don't really, why not build your own portfolio for yourself, right? Everybody has ideas for websites that they want to build, right? And if you don't, just get together with your crazy uncle who always has business ideas or something like that, right? You'll have, when they hear you're a programmer, they'll be like, I always thought that it'd be interesting to have an app that tracks your blah blah blah, right? You'll get an idea right there.
Right.
It doesn't matter if that's going to be, it's not going to be the most lucrative. You're not going to make millions off of it. You're probably not even going to make any money off of it. Right. Which is fine. The point is that you have something to show. You can say, hey, I built this. Well, for example, in my case, the way that I got my the job that led me to become a React developer was that I built an iPhone app that generated new melodies for musicians. Right. It used kind of artificial intelligence-y kind of stuff behind the scenes to generate new musical ideas, right?
Interesting.
And I was able to just basically that was all the interview was I walked in, right? They asked me about my history, my previous jobs, all that kind of stuff. They asked me what my experience with doing iPhone development was. I was like, well, it's funny you should ask. And I pulled out my phone, pulled up the app, and I handed it to them, let them play with it a little bit, explained the thing, explained all my thinking behind how it worked, all that kind of stuff. They asked me a few questions about it, a few technical questions about it that I knew how to answer because I built it. Right.
Right. Better still, you've kind of guided the conversation.
Like, and they were like, I think we've seen all we need to see. And that's, in general, that's kind of the reaction that you'll get in those situations where you can walk in with a portfolio. I mean, just build 2 or 3 projects, right? I mean, there's plenty of websites, plenty of courses, plenty of everything that'll help you build those things. And in fact, if you're, I'm not sure exactly how I can post these links, but like I have, for example, some courses on LinkedIn Learning and on O'Reilly about building a full stack React website. Right? So it's as easy as that. A lot of the time is just watching a course, following along with the code that they create, modifying it a little bit yourself. Then you have a portfolio.
And you have courses coming out with us as well. Pretty soon.
I do. Yeah. So that's
so we have those as well. What's interesting,
I
think
hard to find those things.
That's a great point. I mean, just in general, the concept of, when you walk into an interview of any type and you have an example of work that you've done, and then you've thought it through as well as you've thought it through. It may be the most sophisticated thing, it may be fairly simple. But you've been able to explain the beginning, the middle, the end. You begin to explain why you did it the way you did it. And then people can challenge you in a real-world environment. And so they, frankly, if I were listening to you, I'd probably say, well, why didn't you do this? Or could you do that? I love the idea of your music app. Will it work for jazz as well as heavy metal? So there's elements, and why didn't you think about it that way? And it might have been my client, or my idea was just to do jazz. That's fine. But at least you have I think that the melding both the technical answers and the business answers are pretty important. Again, from not being the technical person in a team, I'd rather have someone be able to say to me, this is the business reason that I did it, and then I built it. And I'd rather have someone who can solve a business problem, as I think most companies would, than someone who has a wonderful technical solution to a business problem that doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, in that case, it's it's definitely it's kind of the atmosphere that you bring into the room, right? If you come in empty-handed and just expect them to quiz you. I mean, personally, like, I'm going to be perfectly honest here. Those kind of interviews still scare the hell out of me, right? I know. I mean, I'm very experienced with React, but I still would never want to walk into a React interview, just and be at the mercy of whatever questions they have. About some obscure React concept. Because they can ask questions that that make sense to them, but that really don't make sense to anyone else, right? That are kind of dealing with some problem that they're working on. They can be, it can be something super, super vague, like, so let's say that you have a React project and you want to hook it up to then they just rattle off some technology names and stuff like that. And they're like, what would be the best way to do that?
Right.
And you don't know if they're asking you because they know the answer, or because they want you to present the answer, or just because they're
throwing things together, maybe saying that doesn't even work together. No, I understand. You're sort of guiding the conversation, right? So you're taking a proactive role.
You want to 100%. I mean, that's kind of where the whole interview them thing comes in. And I mean, personally, I never found, you definitely want to ask them in questions that matter to you, right? You want to ask them about their tech stack. That should be one of the first questions out of your mouth after you've kind of gotten the basics from both people. It's like, so tell me about your tech stack. They'll be more than happy to run you through, okay, so we have a front end that does this, we have a back end built on this, we have, our databases. They'll be more than happy to walk you through that. And then if you can ask further questions about those technologies, right? So if they say that, we have a React front end, and you're able to ask, oh, so what do you use for like state management? Do you use Redux? Do you use something like that? That shows that you have a knowledge of that kind of thing without you actually having to prove that you have any knowledge of that kind of thing, right? Just by the fact that you ask the question.
No, it's essential also. And even if you don't know all those things, at least you know that it's a component of the solution.
Right.
Even if we talked about before the security issues around about the React, if you would say, yes, this can be solved, and presumably Dr. Google can help you solve that in terms of what are some of the solutions available.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, so it's definitely, if you can ask those kind of questions of them, and then further guide the conversation by having conversation pieces to talk about, right? I mean, it's just it's just like going into a date, right? Like if you're going to go on a date, right? You don't just want to walk in empty-handed without knowing anything about them or without having anything to like talk about.
Well, I think you're also saying is you have to be interested.
You
have to be interested in. You have to be interested in who you're talking to. I think that's just a general life skill, right? To be interested in who you're interacting with, and if you're really mostly thinking about, what question is Shaun going to ask me next, and because I'm not a technical person as you are, but I have been through many software development projects since 1991, and I do know from a business point of view the kind of problems that I would encounter, and I would have no idea really technically underneath the hood as to how to solve them. But if someone's asking me the business questions as it relates to the technology, and then they say to me, well, with security issues, I'm not a security expert, but I do know we would have to look at A, B, and C. That it's not, you don't have to have the answer, you also have to have the questions, right?
Right, exactly. And if you can ask, questions like, okay, so how do you get around, like, if you're interviewing at an e-commerce site that's built in React, for example, you could ask, okay, so how do you get around this problem with, how do you get around search engine optimization, right? What kind of things do you use for that? You could come up with any number of questions for them that will kind of guide that conversation for sure.
I mean, it's, as you said, 8 years into the life cycle of this. Obviously, Facebook is a huge proponent. I don't know if you'd say that they own the platform, but they certainly are pretty close to that.
Yeah, they're definitely where all the new kind of React code is tested before it's released, and that's why. So React has been on version 16 for a long time now, and they've a while ago they announced that version 17 was going to come out, and then the deadline kept getting pushed back, and we still haven't seen it yet at this point. So it's because it's one of the things, and this is again why React is such a cool platform to work with, is that it's been literally tested in the furnace, right? It's been baptized by fire because it's Facebook uses it. Facebook has billions of users now, and they use it on their actual website, right? So if it works, I mean, the idea is if it works for them, chances are it works for you too, right?
Well, Facebook just in the past weeks, I mean, maybe it's a week actually, released this meeting functionality. I guess Zoom has taken off as a brand. As we all know, meeting technology has been around a long time. I can recount back in 2002 when I had to pay $2,350 per month to use WebEx. So it's come a long way. So now they've just embedded into your, one of your functions, whether you want to post a picture or set up a meeting. I assume that is a React component.
Right.
So they're releasing a lot of new things that are trying to be competitive with products that have been out there for years, right? And I presume that
For sure.
there's some level of stability in that. Do you sort of have
Yeah.
any ideas about what's the next great wave of React tools that are coming down the line?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're curious about that kind of thing, and that's a great thing to talk about in interviews too, is how they're preparing for, or what their thoughts are on React 17, because there's obviously a lot of things, a lot of sort of benefits that are coming up in React 17. I mean, I'm not going to talk too much about the technical details of it here, but
Sure.
just go on React's website, read the stuff that they have planned for 17. It's sounds like really cutting edge stuff. So,
are there sandboxes? Are there sandboxes that you can use to play with React on the React website?
I'm sure. I'm sure there are I don't know about on the React website itself, but there's definitely plenty of GitHub repositories that you can play around with. There's probably the easiest way to play around with it is on your own computer.
Right.
Just create React app is the script that you can run, sets up the project for you, and you're up and running. So, so it's definitely there's a mountain of opportunity there. If you're just getting started with it, it's not super hard to learn, which is nice. If you're already familiar with it, there's always ways to go deeper with it to improve your skills. So it's got something there for everybody.
Yeah, and I mentioned the new component just because I was sort of hinting at the idea that there's a lot more to come, and there's a lot more scope for applications as we evolve, whether it's telemedicine or other verticals where people will be using IoT types of interfaces. Do you see that? I mean, just maybe as a wrapping up area, because we're kind of at the top of the hour. What do you think in terms of, is that a topic of interest for you, the IoT world, as how React
so I mean,
to that?
That kind of stuff shouldn't really affect React itself, because again, React is just takes data and displays it on the screen for people to see, right? So if that's, if you're talking about Internet of Things, it's just that data that you're getting is going to be from a device, say a toaster or your refrigerator or your shoes. I don't know, whatever cool IoT theories people have out there,
right?
For where computers are going to be found next. I mean, it's just going to be the data's coming from there, and you're displaying that instead of the data coming from a server or the data coming from a database. It shouldn't change the React universe that much, right? And that's again one of the beauties of it, of the library itself, is that it's really it's not really very opinionated, so it can be used for darn near everything.
And it can be used on multiple types of devices and operating systems, right? It's agnostic as to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's React is generally just run in the browser, right? So you can any computer that you can run a browser in. I mean, obviously, as long as it's not IE6 or whatever,
right?
You can run a React app. So it's and it's definitely the opportunities with React too. I just want to point out for those of you who don't know that you can build iPhone and Android apps with React, right? You don't need to know Java or Swift to write iPhone and React apps or iPhone and Android apps anymore. You can use React, right?
It's the same
you can
code
also
base. It's the same code base.
You can have the same code base. Exactly. So I've worked on projects where we've had a single code base that's just been built differently for different platforms, right? So you have a different, that's super cool stuff. Obviously, we can't get into too many details about it here, but that's kind of one of the joys of React. And you can build desktop apps with React too, right? By using there's a piece of technology called Electron that basically takes your React apps, builds them into desktop apps that people can download, right? Like Slack. The Slack app is built using Electron and presumably written in React. So there's a lot of opportunity there. You can build pretty much, if it's got an interface, you can build it with React generally. So
that's fascinating, because also presuming that makes it a lot easier to maintain and to to expand and to scale also
Yeah,
in
for sure.
multiple levels, and probably
Yeah.
also causes there to be fewer chefs in the kitchen, probably because you have an
Exactly.
ability to build a lot more with a lot less, many fewer resources.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
that's definitely the beauty of it.
Well, it's a great first conversation. Appreciate taking the time. Sorry for the
Of
little
course.
technical glitch at the beginning, but here we are, and we'll move
No
forward.
problem.
Okay. Thanks, Shaun.
Sounds good.
We'll be in
Yeah.
touch.
Thank
Thank
you for
you.
having
Okay.
me.
Take care.
All right. See you.